profession and industry. The issue is expected to top the agenda at the Institute's 2015 convention in Kwa-Zulu Natal tomorrow. Thomas Matlala is the president of the South African Institute of Black Property Practitioners. He joins us live from our Durban studios. Thanks for joining us, Thomas.
You're welcome, Matlala.
Now, Thomas, as the Institution of Black Property Practitioners, you are advocating meaningful transformation. Take us through what exactly you mean by that.
Look, by meaningful transformation, what we actually mean is a couple of things. One, you need to make sure that the majority of any country have ownership of that country's assets. Otherwise, you're going to have the situations that we're having with the fees must fall. But over and above that, we're saying we need to be able to build the economy. We need to be able to increase the cake. So the more black companies that we have will increase the number of companies that we have in South Africa. And what it then does is it leads to better economic activity.
Now, the property market is quite competitive. How open to transformation is the existing market?
So just to give you a typical example, and you'll let me know what your views are in terms of how open it is, but the listed sector is worth 400 billion, all right? The black-owned property companies are worth about 15 billion, which is probably what very, very minuscule percentage. And you look at those that are not listed, so you're talking about companies that are involved in the property sector themselves, but they're not on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. When you look there, it becomes even much more worse. We don't have enough representation of those companies in that market.
Now, let's shift focus and look at the conference that's taking place tomorrow. What are you hoping to achieve with the conference specifically?
We are trying to achieve two things. So we're saying as SABC, there are a number of things that we've done in the past. We were the first to advocate for the property charter. That was the first thing. The second thing that we did was we came up with the 10-year lease strategy, which government then implemented, and that led to 15 billion rands worth of assets at least on the stock exchange. So what we're saying is, we know we're bold as an organization, we know we're visionary, but we're also saying there are a number of things that we haven't done as South Africans that we should have done, and one of those is to invest beyond borders. We've got 55 million people in this country. We've got over 1 billion people on the continent. And our view is, while we're dealing with issues here at home in South Africa, we need to be able to say to our entrepreneurs, the continent is there waiting for you. You know, one of the tenets of the African Union, by the way, when it was started in 1963, was that they said while they needed to liberate all the other countries on the continent, one of the things that they also said was, we need to promote intra-trade, so the trade between countries. And there are a number of agreements that have been signed by different governments. What we haven't done as business is we haven't taken that opportunity and made sure that the OAU tenets of 1963 are realized.
Now, speaking of intra-trade, Thomas, growth includes expanding into the rest of the continent. How do we move beyond our shores in practical terms?
You know, the one good thing about the property market is that the fundamentals are the same. So whether you operate in South Africa, or you operate in Mozambique, Tanzania, Uganda, wherever you operate, the fundamentals are the same. So what we're then saying is, because we understand that the fundamentals are the same, we know that we have done it in this country, we need to make sure that we replicate across the continent. If we don't do that, 21 years down the line, we'll still have a continent that is still looking a little bit backward, like most people in European cities are saying. So we need to be able to take those opportunities. We're talking to quite a number of our friends across the continent, organizations similar to ours. Some of them will be represented tomorrow. And we're saying to them, let's ensure that this generation of business people and this generation of leaders change the continent.
Let's look at skills and education. How vital is the role of education in this context? I mean, we say we need black representation to achieve transformation, but are there enough qualified practitioners?
In fact, there are. I think one of the myths, Tobile, is that there are no black people qualified enough to operate in this sector. Just to give you a typical example, I mean, we've been liberated now for 21 years. Universities have been churning out property practitioners for the past 21 years. So there are a lot of them. Our members alone run literally the property market in this country. Some of them that we will be giving awards to tomorrow run multi-billion rand funds, property funds. So yes, there are skills. But your question was, is education important? It is extremely important. So as SABC, what we've done is we've partnered with institutions like Wits University. We're funding some of the students at Wits University that are doing property studies, because we want to make sure that as a country we still have and retain the skills that we have going forward.
Now, just finally, in terms of a way forward, in your view, what are the practical steps that government, property practitioners, and all other stakeholders can take to ensure that there's transformation in this sector?
Simple things, really, that all of us have signed on in the property charter. For instance, we need to be able to say enterprise development works. We know it works. It has produced listed companies like Dipula. We need to encourage that. That's one. Two, we need to make sure that the 10-year strategy that government implemented, that in 5 years created this 15 billion, we need to make sure that we continue with that. But one other thing that is very, very important, we need to ensure that as practitioners, we try and have links with our counterparts across the continent to make sure that not only do we grow this market, but we grow the entire continent.
Mr. Matlala, thank you very much for your time. We'll have to leave it there.
You're welcome.